everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Woman's TV show. My name is Galit Ventura Rosen. I am a professional speaker and I am co-founder of Everyday Woman TV. As you know, joining me every week, one of my favorite things to do is spotlight women that are making a difference and helping make this world a better place. I'm excited today to have with me Andrea. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Galit. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so fun for me to connect with women in the online space that we've been connected for quite a few years. And you mentioned and reminded me that you spotlighted me on your Instagram account, Risk Takers, Dream Makers. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you sure did.
Wonderful. So it's so fun when we kind of circle back and then I get to do the same for you. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share a little bit about Andrea, and then we're going to jump right into a topic that I think is so important for all of you to listen and watch today, which is know your values, know your purpose. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So here we go. Andrea Garrett is a business consultant, and her company is Andrea Garrett Consulting. Andrea is a problem-solving, entrepreneurial, enthusiastic professional with experience in franchising, business development, and operations. Andrea is co-founder of Faith Christian Academy. She was a candidate for the West Virginia State Senate in 2022, which is a whole nother interview, right, Andrea?
Right.
What an experience. She's the mother of three, Jack, Marlo, and Whit, and considers raising them her highest priority and best gig. I second that. I have three myself.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's a full-time job in of itself.
It's the best job in the world.
It is the best job, the most rewarding job. And, you know, they're ultimately the most important. And like I said, they are the best gig.
How old are they?
7, 5, and 1.
Oh, yes. I remember those ages. So my youngest is almost 20, well, 19 and a half. So we have a little time. And I remember those ages, and it was the best thing in the world. Every stage with them is so much fun. So you're going to have such a good time with every stage that you enter with them. So enjoy every minute.
Thank you. I do try to remind myself that often. They're wild and crazy, but it is a lot of fun and they're such a blessing. So it makes life a lot of fun.
It really does. It really does. So let's jump in. Let's talk about why it's so important to know your values and know your purpose.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, I can share a personal experience. And I think that's where our values come into play, because this is a topic really important to me. And so the theme of my very young professional career was not knowing my purpose, not knowing what I wanted to do. I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. I was raised by, business owners. That was the life I knew. And I kind of assumed that would be the role that I fell into as well, but I really wasn't clear on what it is I wanted to do. So I kind of bounced around from profession to profession. I was selling real estate. I was selling insurance for a time. I was a personal trainer, all of these things. And I enjoyed them to the extent that anyone enjoys a job, but it just didn't fulfill me. And then at one point in my life, I was having a conversation with someone and I realized that knowing your values and understanding the things that are most important to you is also how you uncover your purpose in life. And so that has proven true for me and every client and every person that I have worked with to date. And so I truly believe when you understand what your values are, when you understand how you define success, then that creates basically a roadmap for you to, be fulfilled and to find your purpose and just to live a life that, according to your definition of success, is successful.
I love that. I have to share with you, you said so many things that there's so much alignment a lot of times with my guests, which I love. And that's probably why you're attracted to be on my show. And I'm attracted to having you on my show. And one of my favorite things that you said, aside from the roadmap, was your own definition of success. Mm-hmm. I think that there are so many people out there that tend to define it for others, which is not a good idea because everybody has a different definition. And I love to share stories. Like I had this one business client that her only thing that proved that she was successful to her was to be able to take one day off a week to play her harp and go to church on Sundays. Yeah. That was the most important thing to her. Or for somebody else, it could be, I want to travel the world VIP. Or I want my kids to go to any college they want, never think about the cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while we're talking about knowing your values and your purpose, ladies, please recognize and think, what is your definition of success? Because when you know your definition, the world is your playground, because now you can start thinking about what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I
Yeah.
think a lot of times in our culture, we get wrapped up in shoulds. So, there's a lot of should behind, I should, go to a 4-year university. I should pursue this. I should pursue a profession that I can make a lot of money. I should. And, someone told me one time, stop shoulding on yourself. And that's so true. And so I share that a lot, because it's like, what are you doing? We're just trapping ourselves in this idea of success, but it's not our own. And so that definitely leaves us feeling empty, leaves us feeling fulfilled, and like our life has no meaning. And so when you become intentional about the time that you spent, intentional about understanding your whys, and another thing that we talk about a lot is motivation. Motivation is a feeling, just like feeling happy or feeling sad. That comes and goes. But what doesn't go is the root cause, or the root word of motivation is motive. And that word is attached to why. So understanding your why behind everything that you do, that is what propels us. That is what keeps us going. So being very intentional about the way we spend our time, what we're working toward, that's where true fulfillment, that's where true alignment comes from. And also to your point, I've worked with many clients who have had from the surface this very successful life. They've had incredible careers and families and, all of these things that make them look like they are very successful. And in fact, they're really unhappy. And a lot of times it's because they're just not living in alignment. One client specifically that I remember, and this was such an incredible experience for me to help her walk through this, was, she was a CEO of a major corporation. She was extremely successful, as far as like her career is concerned. And she told me one time that the only thing she wanted to do was to spend time with her family. She wanted this sense of freedom, but she wasn't getting that sense of freedom, even though her job was incredible. And so it was just this conversation that we had to step back a little bit and understand, what is it that I really want? I should be really happy. I have everything that the world tells me that I should have in order to be happy, but I'm not. And so just understanding our own personal definitions of what it means to be happy, what it means to be successful, and following that.
So let's go back a little bit, because you covered a lot of the space, a lot of things that I think are so relevant to point out. Okay, and I'm going to do my best to remember them. The first thing that you mentioned that I think is so important to spend a little more time on is knowing your why. So let's start there, and then I'll jump in and share with you a few of the other things I think we should spend a little more time on. But Andrea, take us into, what does that mean to know your why? What are some common whys? Again, they're going to come up with their own, but we can give them some ideas of what that means.
Yeah, sure. Common ones. I mean, there's really no right or wrong answer when it's your why, because it's so individualized. It's so personalized to you. It's tailored to your personality. And, so I've worked with people who their whys are monetary based, they're entrepreneurs. That's why they're motivated by the amount of money that they can make. That's perfectly fine. There are other people who are motivated by their family, by their faith. I mean, there's just such a range of values. It could be anything, their community. There's just service. There's so many. And like I said, none of them are wrong.
Yes. So it was so interesting what you did, which I liked so much. I asked you about the why, and then you went straight into what motivates you. Mm-hmm. And I love that, because that's the connection, is when you know what your why is, let's put a pretend equal sign, equals what motivates you.
Sure.
So as entrepreneurs, let's give some examples that are realistic for people. For example, if we don't get up in the morning, aside from having little children, let's step that aside. If we don't get up in the morning and go to work and work on our business, nobody's going to really care. We have to know our why to motivate ourselves some days, because we're human. And oh gosh, it would be so nice to sleep in today. But if I don't get up and do this, then I'm not going to get this. So could you share some examples for people to be motivated? When you know your why and how that does motivate them?
Yeah, sure. So I think probably the best examples of what that looks like is just to understand what your why is. And so, our culture is very focused on happiness. And this is a topic that I really enjoy thinking about and talking about, because sometimes it's not always happy. Sometimes it's discipline. And it takes a lot of discipline to get to and achieve happiness that's sustainable. And so I think when you think about your whys, you think about the things that you ultimately want and what's it going to take to get your why. And those are the things that motivate you, is because you have a reason to do what you're doing. You have a reason to remain disciplined, to follow this path that leads to your why.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. To follow your path that leads to your why.
Well, and like you said, there are many days that we're tired, we're not feeling the best, and it doesn't feel like something we want to do, get up and the grind again. But when you remember your why, that is what gives us that motive, that motivation, that feeling of motivation. And so that's why the why is so important, because if your why is completely misaligned with your purpose, then you're not going to, this is not sustainable. This is not something that you're actually going to put work in to achieve. But if your why is truly your why, then, there's no stopping you.
So for me, I get asked that question a lot on interviews. Mm-hmm. What is your why? Or when I'm speaking on a panel, what is your why? And I've been a mom for 26 and a half years. My oldest is 26. So I've been a mom more than half my life. Mm-hmm. And my why, I always come out of the gate, and this is genuine, is my 3 kids. Even though they're all adults, I've built a life for them and a path for them that they can do and be whatever they want to be. Mm-hmm. So that's always my first answer. My second answer, and I'd love to know what yours are. My second answer always is you. And when I say you, it's typically an audience of women. You are my why, because if I inspire and motivate one person today to make one different choice, I feel like that's my purpose. Mm-hmm. So I'd love for you to share some of your whys. I'd also love for you to share some of your clients' whys. And then for a second part, if you don't mind, share what motivates your clients to just keep going. Because sometimes it's not fun to do some of the things we have to do. Yeah. And yes, we get to pick and choose, but we still got to do things that aren't so fun in our businesses. It's just part of life.
That's that's true. And so, as far as what my whys are my values. So my values are my faith, my family, and freedom. And to me, yes, that's how I define success, as freedom. And so when I feel like I have freedom, I have autonomy, that's when I feel happy. And so I know that I have to create a life for me, and it takes a lot of intention where I can sustain a flexible, work schedule so that I can feel freedom. Because I know that without feeling freedom, I will feel very unfulfilled. Mm-hmm. I will feel very unhappy. So that's where that discipline part comes in, because in order for me to achieve freedom, I have to work really hard. I have to be very intentional about how I spend my time and my money and my effort, my attention, all of those things. And so those are my whys, and those are the reason for my whys, is because I am working towards freedom. And for me, that's most important. And so that's where I can remain motivated. And on the days I don't feel like working very hard, I remind myself, I'm working for my freedom. And ultimately that's most important to me, because if I have my freedom, I could be available for my children. Mm-hmm. I can spend the time in the way that I feel like is the highest and best use of my time. And so that is ultimately very important to me to feel successful. And other examples from other clients, that's a very, that's a pretty common one, is to feel like you're in control of your life. A lot of people like that. So maybe you don't put the word freedom on it, but you put autonomous, or, that I feel like I'm in alignment with my purpose. A lot of people want that, but I really always encourage people to get more clear on what that means. And so what are those little values? What are the micro values that lead to like those bigger terms that are a little more ambiguous? But for me, that's freedom. That's it for me.
It's one of mine too. And what motivates me is the things I'm doing today. And as much as I'm working today is not going to be where I'm going to be in a year or two, because I'm building that empire, right? Mm-hmm. And I love that. So everyone listening and watching today, I want you to watch this again. because there were some keywords that Andrea said that I think you need to write down. So watch it the first time because we're almost at the end. Great. Now go back, watch it again. And I want you to pick out the keywords that Andrea said that you can directly relate to. So I'll give you an example. For me, it's freedom, alignment, purpose, motivation, happiness. Okay. Those 5 words for me are like, I could just write those everywhere and just look at those all day long and know exactly what I'm supposed to do. She gave you so much value today. One of the things that was so valuable that Andrea said today is being, gosh, what was the word you used, Andrea, about your time? Was it being conscious about your time? What was that word you used? It was so perfect.
Intentional.
Thank you. Intentional.
It's a word I
Being
use a lot.
intentional. Yeah, I love the word intentional. But being intentional with your time. For me, a lot of it was, if I say yes to this person when my kids were little, I now am taking away from my child. And that always worked for me, Andrea, because I was the mom that was always there too, just like you. So share with us where everybody can get a hold of you, learn about working with you as a business consultant.
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Andrea Garrett. So I think you could find me pretty easily there. And one more thing I wanted to leave as a value is, and really it's an exercise. And I find this incredibly helpful, and it just simplifies this whole process because this is not difficult. This is, it really is very, very simple and very easy. And so what I love to do with clients, and I do this initially every time I sit down with them, is make this T chart. So you literally just make a T. On one side, you put your goals. On the other side, you put your values. So list your values first. So write them down. Really, you should have between 3 and 5. And a lot of people have more than that. That's okay. But really try to hone in on those most important values. On the other side of this chart, list your goals. So you have your values and your goals. And what I love to do, and I think is really eye-opening for a lot of folks, is to match the goal with the value. So you have a goal written down. Does that goal, will it bring you to this value or give you more of this value? So just draw a line to each value that you will get or you'll get more of by completing that goal. A lot of times what happens is you see a lot of goals on that list that do not match to values. And that is kind of where you're like, wait a second, why am I doing this? Why am I working so hard for something that does not align with my values? And I think that's a really good way to understand why you're doing what you're doing and be more intentional with your time.
You know, I can also see somebody stopping what they're doing. And if they're about to do something, say yes, or they're doing something that doesn't feel good, almost like going back to that list or making that list with that specific thing that they're doing.
Absolutely. And many times I've worked with clients who a goal of theirs is fun, which I love that or a value rather. I love it as a value. And so they'll look at all their goals and none of their goals are matching to their value of fun. And they realize, wow, I don't feel that fulfilled. And maybe it's because I'm missing that element of fun. And so, add a goal in there. Maybe you do something fun once a week, once a month. It doesn't matter. But as long as you are doing things, your goals are in alignment with your values, you will feel purposeful. You will feel like your life has meaning, and most importantly, you'll feel fulfilled.
I love that. Yes. And it's nice to feel that way when you wake up in the morning and you're a little bit tired because maybe you didn't sleep so good and now you have a full day of 12 hours of stuff to do. And so feeling fulfilled, feeling purposeful absolutely helps with the energy to get through that day.
It does indeed.
Doesn't it? Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for being with us, for taking the time to share your area of expertise with the viewers and listeners of the Successful Women's TV show. I appreciate you offering those tips. I think they were fabulous. Like I said, watch it again because these are keywords that you're going to want to keep close to you. And I thank everybody that's watching and listening to another episode of the show this week, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.